My brother didn't just betray me. He took my future, my family, and the woman I planned to marry, and years later, when he lost everything, he expected me to save him. I've gone back and forth for a long time about telling this story, not because it's painful, but because once you say something out loud, you can't pretend it didn't happen. Growing up, I was never the favorite. That role belonged to my older brother, Ryan. Ryan was confident, charming, and loud. He walked into rooms like he owned them. Teachers adored him, friends followed him, and my parents defended him no matter what. If Ryan made a bad decision, there was always an excuse. If I made one, there was silence. I learned early on that love in my family wasn't equal, it was conditional, and Ryan always met the conditions. As adults, nothing changed. Ryan drifted from job to job, borrowed money, burned bridges. My parents continued to support him. I took a different path. I worked full-time, paid my own bills, stayed out of trouble. I didn't ask for help because I didn't want to owe anyone. I believed that consistency would eventually be rewarded. I was wrong. When I met Emily, everything felt different. She was calm, thoughtful, grounded. She made me feel chosen in a way I never had before. We dated for 3 years. We built routines, talked about the future, made real plans. When I proposed, she said yes without hesitation. I thought my life was finally stable. When I introduced Emily to my family, Ryan immediately took interest. At first, it seemed harmless. Compliments, jokes, that effortless charm people always fell for. Emily mentioned once that he was a lot. I brushed it off. Ryan had always been like that. When we announced our engagement, Ryan suddenly became very involved. He offered help, stopped by unannounced, inserted himself into conversations that had nothing to do with him. He joked at my expense in front of everyone. People laughed, including Emily. That should have been my first warning. As the wedding date got closer, things began to change. Emily became distant. She seemed distracted, emotionally unavailable. When I asked if something was wrong, she said she was overwhelmed. I believed her. I trusted her. I trusted my brother. 2 months before the wedding, I came home early from work. I expected to surprise my fiancé. Instead, I walked into silence. Then I heard voices coming from the bedroom. I already knew, but I opened the door anyway. Emily was there. So was my brother. Time didn't slow down. It stopped. Emily froze. Ryan didn't move at all. He didn't panic. He didn't apologize. He just looked annoyed, as if I had interrupted him. Emily started crying. She said it was a mistake, that it just happened. Ryan laughed. He stood up and said, "You should have known she wasn't happy." Then he looked at me and added, "She was never really yours." That moment changed me, not just because of the betrayal, but because of how confident he was, like this outcome was inevitable. The aftermath was worse than the discovery. Emily moved out that night. The wedding was canceled. Friends started choosing sides. Ryan controlled the narrative. He told people the relationship was already failing, that emotions were complicated, that no one planned for it to happen. Some people believed him. Others stayed quiet. My parents asked me to forgive him. They said holding on to resentment wasn't healthy. They said he's still your brother. When I asked why no one held him accountable, my mother said, "Don't make us choose." That's when I realized they already had. A month later, Emily told me she was expecting a child. Ryan's child. That was the moment I cut all contact. I changed my number, moved cities, started over completely. The next few years were quiet. I focused on work, built a stable routine. I avoided family events. Ryan married Emily. They had another child. From what I heard, things were difficult. Arguments, financial stress, broken trust. Eventually, Emily left. Then, my father became seriously ill. My parents reached out, not to apologize, but to ask for help. I showed up. I helped with appointments, paperwork, and care. Ryan rarely did. When my father passed away, everything changed. My mother sat me down. She handed me documents. They had rewritten their will years earlier. Everything was left to me. Not out of revenge, but because, as my mother said, you were the only one who stayed. Ryan found out weeks later. That's when he contacted me, for the first time in years. He apologized. He said he had changed. He said he needed help. We met in person. He looked tired, smaller. His confidence was gone. For the first time in my life, he didn't dominate the room. He started talking immediately, about how unfair everything felt, about how one mistake shouldn't define a lifetime, about how people had abandoned him. I listened, quietly. Then he said something I didn't expect. He admitted he had always been jealous of me, not because of success, but because, in his words, you never needed anyone's approval. That stopped me, because for most of my life, I believed the opposite. Ryan said he'd spent years competing with me without realizing it, that when he saw Emily with me, he didn't just want her, he wanted to prove something, to himself. For a moment, I felt something close to sympathy. Then he asked me for money. Not help finding work, not guidance, money. He said it would get him back on his feet, that he deserved another chance. That was when everything became clear. Ryan hadn't changed, he had just run out of options. I told him I wouldn't help financially, but I offered something else. I offered advice. I offered to help him find work, to rebuild slowly, honestly. He rejected it. He said it wasn't enough. He said I was enjoying this too much. We ended the conversation quietly. No shouting, no closure. Just two people sitting across from each other, finally understanding that there was nothing left to salvage. That was the last time I saw him. Months passed. Life moved on. I focused on my family, on stability, on peace. Then one day I heard through extended relatives that Ryan had left town. No forwarding address, no explanations. Some people said he was chasing another opportunity. Others said he was running from consequences. Maybe both. I don't know where Ryan is now, and honestly, I don't need to. For a long time, I believed forgiveness meant reconciliation, that healing required contact. I know better now. Forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door. Sometimes it just means locking it and finally walking away. Today, my life is peaceful, predictable, and safe. Everything Ryan once mocked. And that's the part he never understood. I didn't win because he lost. I won because I stopped playing the game.